Our first company for today's webinar is QX Resources. QX Resources, trading under the ASX code QXR, with a market capitalisation of approximately 7 million, is focused on exploration and development of battery minerals and gold. This includes a large lithium brine project in the USA, hard rock lithium in Pilbara, gold and copper gold in central Queensland, and iron ore in the Pilbara. Presenting today is QX Resources MD Steve Promnitz. Steve, welcome back, and please take it away.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for tuning in. So I'm actually holding the fort here for the people who are not in Noosa this week, which is one of the biggest mining and energy conferences on the East Coast. I'm going to be talking about QXR, specifically about battery minerals and gold. With battery minerals, we've got a very large lithium brine project that we're developing in the Western US. And the reason we're doing that, and I'll be talking further about it, is what's happening with the whole energy transition in the USA. It's quite exciting. They've been playing very quick catch-up in the last few years. And regardless of what administration happens, either now or in the future in Washington, DC, they're on a path that's going to need battery minerals produced domestically within the US. And then I'll be talking about gold. The reason I'm talking about gold is that this week, gold reached all-time highs, up above US $2,400 an ounce, for those who've been following it. And the good thing is, QXR has some very exciting gold projects in central Queensland. We've actually been trying to do work on it for quite some time, and weather has been an issue, but we're going to be pulling out some results on that fairly soon. All right, so the second slide is a disclaimer slide, and I need to share this. I will be making forward-looking comments, so please be mindful of that. Next slide, please. So QXR is focused on battery minerals. We have a portfolio with lithium brines in the US, hard rock in the Pilbara of Western Australia, copper in central Queensland, and nickel in Sweden. That's through an investment in a separate company. And for gold, this is both in central Queensland, both near surface projects, exploration projects, and also the potential to reopening shuttered gold mines from the past. And these mines were operating at lower gold prices. Next slide, please. So let's look at the battery minerals and specifically lithium. Now, why would I be talking about lithium? For those who've been following lithium now for the last few years, you'll probably be, a little like myself, somewhat disappointed that lithium prices are off about 70% over the last 18 months. And consequently, most lithium explorers and lithium producers are off somewhere between 60 and 95% as a result. However, this is actually the time to get involved, because lithium will come back at a certain stage, mainly because the world needs it, not just for batteries for EVs, but also for energy storage. Specifically in the US, they want to create their own ecosystem, and we want to be there with a typical lithium brine project, just like it's been developed in South America, in Chile and Argentina. I've worked on those in the past. Try to find something just like that in the Western US. Thankfully, with our lithium brine project in California, we've now defined a very large brine basin, thanks to drilling that we completed earlier this year. And secondly, we've found geology which is very similar to the major producer just across the border from California and Nevada. Now, the reason this is important is that this is probably one of the largest near-surface brine basins so far discovered that's a lookalike for Clayton Valley, where Albemarle has been producing since the 60s of lithium. And we've still got some work to do. We've identified the right sequence. If you look down to the bottom right-hand corner of this slide, you'll see this colored image. We've been drilling off to the right-hand side of that image. We need to get into the middle, deeper into the basin, and we hope to get better results and even more brine to then mimic what has been found in the past across the border in Nevada with Albemarle's producer. Next slide, please. And the reason this is exciting is because the US wants its own circular ecosystem. They want to be able to produce their own battery minerals, process them, make them into batteries, put them into their own cars. And regardless of which administration is in Washington, they're actively promoting this. Either A, because they want to be part of the energy transition, or B, they're concerned about the risks of being too dependent on China for the supply of these minerals going forward. So because of that, QXR has partnered with a new company called Stardust. They actually listed just last week on NASDAQ and now have $1 billion market value. They're going to be building a production plant in Oklahoma, and they've been looking around for specifically brines, both from oil fields and also a traditional project like ours, which mimics what we see in South America. And they're focused on getting US supply into a US plant and then putting those into US batteries. So look, it's quite an exciting time, and that's why we've been focused on lithium in the US. Next slide, please. Now, changing to gold. As I mentioned, gold this week hit all-time highs. So it's been interesting that although that's happened, only a few of the producers have moved up in price. The so-called small caps or junior explorers, despite a couple of them have moved, most haven't moved. So there's still an opportunity to invest in some of these junior explorers who have good-looking gold projects. Now, there are many gold projects in Western Australia. It's been a great gold producer for more than 120 years. We're focused in central Queensland, which is underexplored and very well endowed. There's a mine called Pajingo, which has produced 3.5 million ounces of gold. And to put that in layman's terms, that is a serious amount for one project. Newmont, that then became Newcrest, has been in there. And it's interesting that Newmont is actually back after purchasing Newcrest earlier. They're back now in a joint venture with our neighbour GBM, and they're spending about $7 million a year just up the road from our projects. Just on Monday, a project right next to where we're working is actually been purchased for $6 million cash, another $6 million investment over the next 18 months for 70%. So there's a lot happening in this area. We've announced that we're going to be doing some new trenching on a project called Big Red. We've seen some gold at surface, and we're also looking to open some shuttered open pit gold mines. And these open pit gold mines were last operating when gold was under 500 Aussie an ounce, and it's now over $3,500 an ounce in Aussie dollar terms. Next slide, please. All right, so just looking at Big Red, this big yellow image you see here on the right-hand side, that just shows an area where we've done some trenching in the past, and we've found some breccias, quartz veins, and bits of carbonate at surface with some great numbers, 9 meters at 5.9 grams, 7 meters at 7 grams. They're good intercepts for just using an excavator digging trenches. We want to dig a few more trenches over the next month or two, so that then we can bring in a drill rig and actually work this out. And best of all, as I mentioned, just up the road, less than 2,000 meters away, has a project that was announced on Monday as part of a $12 million deal to buy 70%. They've got 500,000 ounces just across our lease boundary at Lone Sister, and another 500,000 ounces, another 2 kilometers up the road. So it's a right patch. We're pretty excited to find something here this calendar year. Next slide, please. Then we also want to look at some shuttered open pit gold mines. These were operating, as I mentioned, back in the 1980s when gold was under $500 an ounce. We've got 2 of them here. We've got extensions at depth, some pretty exciting numbers. And we're going to be doing some resource modeling to actually work out what the next steps are. When gold price goes up, people always go back to old mines because gold is where you find it. But these look pretty exciting because when they were first discovered, they really just looked for bits of white quartz sticking out of the hills. And now we're trying to be a little more scientific about how we follow these things down dip and along strike. Next slide, please. Now, leaving gold, we've also got an iron ore project. This is at a very early stage, exploration. Some great numbers, 57, 58% iron. Just to put that in context, that's the sort of thing that can be used for direct shipping ore. How these things work is that the rocks over time actually end up with this enriched iron ore material at surface. And the nice thing about this, it's between 5 and 15 kilometres from two major rail lines, one owned by Hancock, the other by Fortescue, which ships iron ore up to the coast. So we're in discussions. We're looking at past work that's been done here. We'll have more to talk about this latter part of this year. Next slide, please. Just quickly as a company, QXR, we've got a market cap, as mentioned at the start, about $6.5 to $7 million. It has been higher, like most juniors, particularly with exposure to lithium. It's tailed off, but I think we can see a turnaround in that with some gold and then longer term with lithium. It's a pretty open register. Top 20 shareholders own about 40%. Next slide, please. And then the board, 4 members, myself and Roger have a technical background. Morris and myself both come also from a markets background, and Dan is a great company secretary, as well as a finance guy. Next slide, please. And so the key takeaways, we've got a major lithium brine project with scale in the US, and we may see some news about working with our partner that I talked about going forward. We've got some drill-ready gold projects once we finish some trenching, and there could be some very exciting extensions in grade. And then the iron ore is pretty much deal ready. We just got to demonstrate the upside. So you can see our website there, qxresources.com.au. Always happy to answer any questions. Back to you, Paul.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, plenty of questions. First one, how important is this relationship with Stardust, and what do they bring to the table, Steve?
All right. So when you're a lithium explorer, you want to find a large brine resource, and then as people will remember from my last role and also in this one, then we try to work with direct lithium extraction, which is a more modern and efficient way of taking that lithium out of the brine efficiently and producing a lithium product. Now, in the past, you would go and talk to car makers or battery makers, and then you would have the upstream of a lithium brine resource. What Stardust does is sit in the middle. It'll take either a raw brine feed that's been concentrated, it'll take something that comes from a direct lithium extraction plant that might be turned into lithium chloride and process it, or they might take something that you've made into carbonate or hydroxide. Then they make a final product that goes into the cathode for the battery. And that's the step that's really been missing with a couple of exceptions in the US. Recently, they've built anode and cathode plants. They've built a lot of battery plants. They've built EV makers. So that's why we're working with them to fill that gap.
And a question here, when will the new drilling start at Liberty take place?
Well, first of all, it's the middle of summer there, and honestly, it is staggeringly hot. It actually makes the Pilbara look pretty reasonable. They're having a heat wave in the western US, so it's over 55 degrees Celsius. So we're just going to wait till it cools off a little bit for the drillers to come back. I'm expecting that's going to be more like an October date, and in between that, we're going to be doing some further test work and getting things in place along our battery supply chain.
And a question here, when can we expect further results from the Pilbara iron ore project, and what grades are you currently seeing?
Yeah, so unfortunately, we've been a little held up getting the right technical team onto the ground there. We could have sent out any sort of team, but I wanted some people that have the experience about these enriched iron projects from elsewhere. And so now we've finally got onto those. They've been tied up on other projects. It's despite iron ore being off a little bit, it's still fairly hot property. So I anticipate we're going to have some more news this quarter, and that'll initially just be rock chip fences to confirm this enriched iron ore. And so expect more results in that 54, 55, 56, 58, 60% iron range, which is the sort of stuff you're looking for direct shipping.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for your time, and you have a great weekend.
Thank you so much. And look, if you've got more questions, bang them through to Paul, and always happy to answer them afterwards. Cheers for now.
Thanks, Steve.